Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the ScriptDoll office hours. We are really excited to be here today with you, giving you some great content. And the second session, we thought long and hard on what we were going to talk about as Kayla and mine, Debbie Drum, and with Kayla McDonald, our first solo session with you guys, and we wanted it to really be something that we thought that a lot of marketers are struggling with, that we just hear from the community, that we hear from our help desk and everything like that. And this one topic is features and benefits in copywriting. So that's what we are going to be focusing on today. And we just see, unfortunately, a lot of marketers just struggling with this, not exactly getting it right with their copy, and just following a simple kind of, I guess, set of rules, which we'll get into, and just some structure and some questions to ask yourself whenever you're outlining your features and benefits. It should put you on the right path to get this part right to start selling some more. So let's get started. I'm going to hand this over to Kayla. She's going to open it up. And like I said earlier, if you have questions, put them in the question box. If it's relevant to the time, we will answer them right away. If not, we will get to every single question by the end of the session. All right, so take it away, Kayla.
Cool. Hey guys, pretty excited to be talking about this topic today. I'm sure a lot of you guys are at least somewhat familiar with the concept. How many of you know a little bit about features, benefits, and advantages and how that works with copy? A few of you, maybe?
And definitely, please interact with us, and tell us what's going on. And good. All right, awesome. All right, we're getting some good responses.
Yeah, so a few of you are pretty familiar with it. So basically today we just want to take that basic concept and show you guys how to use it. And I want to show you guys to kind of how professional copywriters put them to work and how we put that extra touch on and how you guys can use that in your own copy. So today we're going to be covering how to use those concepts and use them to increase your conversions. I'm going to show you guys a really big mistake that a lot of people, completely unintentionally, but a lot of people make in their sales copy. And once you fix this mistake, you'll probably notice that it'll really help with your conversion rates. I'm also going to show you guys a 3-step process that myself and other professional copywriters use when you're when you're familiarizing yourself with the features and benefits and advantages of your product. And I'm also going to talk to you guys a little bit about emotional selling. Is that something that anybody has heard about already? Is emotional selling, is that? Got a few familiars on there, so that's cool. All right, so I'm going to dive right in. So in front of you, you'll see right now an example. This is the features and benefits list that we actually use in our own ScriptDoll copy. That some of you, if you guys, how many ScriptDoll users do we have in the room right now? Probably a few. So you guys have probably seen this list, and this is a pretty central part of copy. Whether you're using emails or video sales letters or a general sales letter, this is definitely a staple in your copy. So this is for those of you that aren't overly familiar, I just want to kind of give you guys a visual. This is what we're going to be talking about today and diving into today. So first thing I want to do is define what a feature is. So a feature is just the basic characteristics of your product or service. So that's going to be, in essence, that's going to be why you created your product. Next, you're going to get the benefit. So the benefit is how that feature positively affects the end user. And then the advantage is what throws people off most of the time. And I know even for me, when I began copywriting, I had a really hard time understanding this concept. And so an advantage is how a benefit is necessary to the end user and how it, how that benefit is going to play a part in their life. And I know we kind of touched on, for those of you that joined us last week on our office hours, we kind of touched on that a little bit, and kind of how the advantage really shows a person how a benefit is, it takes your product to the next level. And we're going to dive in. I don't want to spend too much time on this part, but we're going to dive into that a little bit more. So is that a pretty clear idea of the definition, or do you guys need some more clarification? I just want to make sure everyone has a really
Kayla,
clear idea on these.
just to kind of
Cool.
ask a question here, so people should be focusing on all three of these things, right?
Yeah, definitely. You need to make sure that as you're describing the features of your product and when you get to pitching your product, you want to make sure you have each of these covered, and that's what we're going to show you today is how to do that.
Awesome.
So, cool. So, yeah, I just want to make sure everyone's got a pretty clear idea. I don't want to beat, the basics to death. I want to spend some more time on the good stuff. So, all right. So, what big mistake that a lot of marketers make in their copy? Well, mainly, a lot of people assume their customer knows why a benefit is good for them, right? So we kind of, like I said, last week we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I really want to dive into this point because it is really important. So a lot of marketers miss explaining the advantage of their product. Instead, they assume that the customers are going to know why the benefit is necessary. And this is a huge mistake because you basically want to spell it for your customer why a benefit is really going to help them, because they may see the benefit but go, oh, I don't really need that in my life. The advantage is going to help take them to that next level. So here's an example for you guys. How many of you guys are parents in the room? Not me yet, but I'm sure there's a few parents here that'll be familiar with this example. So if you are a parent
of a dog.
Oh, I'm a parent. I got a little lab over there that I take care of. So I mean, but for those of you that are parents and you've gone through this, being a new parent is extremely, extremely overwhelming, and there's a million and one things you need to do to prepare for becoming a parent, and it's really overwhelming. So one of the products that I know that new parents kind of maybe consider but might kind of bounce off their radar because they're so focused on all the essentials, baby bottles and diapers and all that jazz, are those cupboard safety locks. Those are those things that people put around their cabinet doors so that babies can't get into it. So basically with that, one of the features of that product is that it'll lock the doors to your kitchen cabinet. That's the basic functionality of that product. That's the feature. The benefit of that is that it'll prevent your baby from opening the cabinets and retrieving any items inside, but that's not really the selling point. Now, a lot of you guys can see kind of where I'm going with this and why this is going to be an advantage to a parent. But what's going to sell the parent? It's not necessarily the fact that the babies can't open the doors. It's going to be the fact that it protects the baby from touching anything that might be harmful or fatal to them, right? So that's where we bring in the advantage. So the advantage of this product is that it's going to keep your baby safe from products that could be harmful and potentially fatal. So I know a lot of people keep their cleaning products under the sink and garbage and everything like that. So does that kind of, Debbie, do you have any questions on that? Like
Yeah, no, just what I wanted to kind of bring up here is like this is such a it's like a simple and obvious reason that that obviously you don't want your kids getting access to like the bleach and all the dangerous products and everything, but when you spell it out like that and you outline it like that, like it's what you said before, like don't assume that people are already going to come to that conclusion on their own. Right, so this is as simple as it might sound, like needs to be spelled out in the copy, and I think that's like the important thing to kind of note here is that like don't make an assumption that people are already gonna like realize that. So
yeah, exactly.
That's
so
super important.
Yeah, so like Debbie said, this is kind of an obvious example, and most of us can pretty much generalize why we wouldn't want babies digging through cabinets, but that's not always the case. There's going to be products that, the benefit may seem good, but the advantage is really what's going to take them there. And as you can see, even with these cabinet locks, people aren't buying the cabinet locks for the benefit of not having the baby go through. They're going for the advantage of having a healthy baby that they can feel good about keeping safe and have that peace of mind. So the point I want you guys to take home from this is don't ever assume that your customer understands the benefit. Make sure you're always spelling it out for them and bringing them to that place where they see why it's so necessary for them to have your product and what the true advantage of having it is in their life. So So that's that. So don't make that mistake. And a good thing to consider too while you're trying to figure out what the advantage is what the consequences are. So in this case, with the baby cupboard locks, the consequences is having a child who is potentially harmed and going through the stress of having a sick or injured child, right? No parent wants it. That's a parent's worst nightmare. So that's a really good way to kind of consider the flip side and why your customers, what the advantages of the product that they need.
Hey, okay.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I'm just moving
No,
on. So
okay, go ahead. Yeah, I was just wondering if the slides were supposed to change, but all right, I see that you did.
I was just trying to find my flip button there.
Okay.
All right, so next we're going to move on to there we go. Okay, so next we're going to go on to the 3-step selling formula. So this is something that myself and other copywriters use, and this is something that I really want to encourage you guys to do, and this is a step that you're going to take before you ever write your copy. This is something I want you guys to do first, even before, if you guys are a Scriptdoll user, even before you get to actually filling out your profile, I want you guys to do this first and get in the habit of that, because this is what's going to work as a true outline of your copy. So you're going to make a table, and your table can look something similar to this. And the first thing you want to do is make a list of all the features of your product. So in order to figure out the features of your product, basically just ask yourself, why did I create this product in the first place? Did you create it to prevent a safety concern? Did you do it to save time? Did you do it to, make money? Why did you create this product? And that's what's going to go through. And we're using the example of the baby cabinet locks because we're already kind of rolling with that. So these are features that in the example here that might be a reason why somebody might have created a baby cabinet lock. It'll lock the cabinet door. It might have a quickly detached lock so that parents can easily access the cupboard themselves. It might come in a variety of colors. These are the things that you want to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out what the features of your product are. Is there any questions about that before we move on?
Yeah, I have a question. My hand is raised here. How many, as an exercise when you're writing your copy, how many features should you write, aim to have? Maybe 15 or 20 and kind of weed out the good ones and the bad ones, or how do you go about doing this?
Generally, I try to find at least 5 really, really good ones. 5 is a pretty magic number, because the thing is when you go to writing your copy, you don't want to flood it with features, because it's just going to take away from the stuff that's the selling point. So usually what I initially start this process is I'll write down as many as, when I get a product from a customer or from Ben when we're writing our sales copy, I'll go through and I will just, do a complete brain dump and write as many features down as I can think of. There's no limitation. Just write down as many. You might have 5, you might have 15, you might have 50, I don't know. Write down as many as you can, and then go through and then it's when we get to the next step, that's where you're going to start kind of weeding out and go, okay, is this really an important selling feature? Is this really something that's going to sell this product? Because some features are going to help sell your product, some might not as much. So you want to at least narrow that list down to about 5, maybe. I wouldn't go more than 8, because at that point you're just, like I said, you're going to saturate and you're going to overwhelm people. So try to pick your best 5 to 8 from that list. Does that give you guys a good idea of how to do this step? I really want you guys to really understand this process. It's pretty important.
Yeah, and it just as an exercise, even if it's the dumbest feature ever, just write it down so that you could maybe perhaps weed it out later, or that could be something sometimes the smallest, littlest thing helps sell your product and gets the people to buy. So, just as an exercise, just write down as many as possible at first, and then you're going to weed it out later.
Exactly. And then sometimes even when you write down a bunch of stuff, it just helps you link to other ideas. It might inspire you to come up with something else. So, I mean, you're not wrong in this phase, and this isn't something that your customer is going to see. This is just for you. I've got notebooks and notebooks of my pages when I do this, and let me tell you, they are a complete mess. If I were to show you guys, they wouldn't make any sense because they are just scribbles of all the and scratched out stuff, and that's what it's supposed to look like. This is just simply your brainstorming time and to start inspiring yourself with all the ideas. So cool. All right. So step 2 we're going to outline all of our benefits. So we're going to take all those features that we just wrote out, and we're going to ask ourselves, why is this important to include? And that's why I said in this step, that's where you're going to start weeding out all the features that you just came up, because essentially you're going to ask yourself, like, is this really that important? Is this really going to help reel in customers and bring people inside the sale? So going back to our baby lock example, so as you can see, we've got the feature of it locks the cabinet door. The benefit of that is that it prevents the baby from accessing the cabinet contents. That's a pretty important feature. The next feature, quickly detached lock. So the benefit of that is we've got an easy parents have easy oh my goodness, why can't I speak today? Easy, no fuss access to content. So that may be something that parents worry about, right? Because yes, you want to save your baby, and that's the absolute most important thing, but you also don't want to be fiddling. I know those things can be a real pain in the butt. So that would be probably something where if somebody came up with something like that, that would be a really important feature to include. The next feature is that it comes in a variety of colors. The benefit of that, it'll match the decor of your home. This is an example where you're going to go, okay, is that really that important? Is that going to sell? It might sell, like depending. This is where you have to know your market and have a good idea of what's important to your market, right? So that's what you're thinking. So just remember, benefits are the ways that a feature positively affects the user, and that's step 2. Is we're just going to go through and we're going to outline any benefits there. So do we have any questions on that? Like I said, this is super important stuff. So pretty good.
There's some questions, but we might hold them to later on.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so next we're going to go to step 3. So you've got all your features laid out, you've got your benefits laid out. Now we're going to go through our list for a third time, and we're going to ask ourselves, well, what's in it for the customer? How is this necessary to their overall well-being? So this is where we take it to that next step further. This is where we're going to start playing the emotional cards. This is where we're going to start digging in and rubbing salt in the wounds. So going back to our example, the advantage of, your baby's not going to be exposed to any products that can cause injury or death. Parents can quickly access the cabinets, and another advantage might be, this seems really superficial now that I'm reading this back, but you don't need to sacrifice the feeling of home in order to protect your child. How awful is that? I don't know where I came up with that. Anyways, this is how you weed out your features and benefits list, and you go, how is this going to appeal to my market?
Yeah, and what order should it go in?
Right, exactly. So anybody that's selling cupboard locks, I'm not sure I recommend the last one, but anyways, so this is basically the table that you're going to lay it out in. I personally find that putting it in a table, you can do this however you want. I mean, the main thing is just asking yourself those questions in that order. It's a really great way to weed out and figure out what's important. Is going to help you develop your sales angle. But putting in a table like this is a really good way just to begin organizing yourself. So I think that's pretty.
Yeah, what's interesting about this, actually, the title of this office hour should, I said features and benefits, but that's kind of a misnomer. It should be features, benefits, and advantages, I should have said, because even secondhand like me, I'm just thinking, and you know, a lot of copywriting classes, they say, what are your features and your benefits? But adding these advantages that's the third step that I think that most marketers really miss, because they talk about the features, they talk about the kind of the obvious benefits out of that, but they forget to explain why. And the advantages is really your why, right? That's like going that step further, taking that extra step to really hit it home. And even though we understand, like I said before, we understand the basics of why we don't want kids to get into a cabinet, well, you want to paint the picture, right? Because your kid could end up dead or severely injured if they ingest, something that they're not supposed to.
Turning into a really brutal office hours with this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I love this topic, right? But it might be scary, saying things like that. It's kind of like, using the fear factor to sell, but and some people may feel uncomfortable by doing that, but it's really true, and it's kind of a necessary evil that you have to take it a step further because you really want to paint the picture in your mind or in your prospect's mind to have that fear, and
Right. Yeah.
go get the sale.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, it all comes back to emotions, right? Like and I don't want to go too far into this right now because that's about what we're about to jump into.
Hmm.
But yeah, it definitely jumps into the emotions of a decision and playing on those emotions. And just to kind of go backtrack a little bit to last week, I used an example of just to illustrate for you guys when something might not be so obvious because this seems like a pretty obvious example, but last week I used the example of those automatic car starters. I don't know if those are really a big thing in the South or not. Up north, where I'm from, they are huge. It's a huge luxury to have an automatic car starter because you can start your car and you can have it warm up without having to like lug yourself out with all your snow gear on, which is huge. And so let's say you have somebody from the South who's coming up. For whatever reason, they decided to move back up into the snow belt and they're buying a new car and the sales guy's trying to upsell them on a car starter. They may not understand. See, so you have a car starter. The benefit, the feature is that it turns your car on. The benefit is that you don't actually have to go to your car to turn your car on. That might not be enough to sell somebody who doesn't understand what the true advantage is. Like obviously it's great. I don't have to actually walk out to my car to turn it on to heat it up or whatever. But when you tell them the advantage of being able to start your car from your living room window or wherever is closest to your driveway, that you don't have to put your snow gear on, your hat, your toques, all that kind of stuff, and lug that on. Go out to your car in the freezing cold and turn your car on and then rush back into the house like crazy. That's the advantage. And I like to use that example because I think that a little bit better illustrates a situation where a customer might not understand why the benefit is actually an advantage to them. So
Yeah, I
that
love
sums
this.
that
I
up.
love that because it's really like you're painting the picture so that the person could really feel that grueling feeling of being freezing and having to walk to your car and having your car be all freezing instead of walking into a warm, nice, toasty car. So,
Yeah,
as a writer,
exactly.
I'm like I look at it that way because it helps me. Um, it's like that's the advantage. The advantages is like a description
Yeah,
how how to make the prospect feel in the moment when they're reading this. That's awesome.
yeah. I just want to answer one really quick question here. If you don't include colors here, where would you? It totally depends on your product how necessary the color of it might be. If in this case, when we're selling a baby covered lock, colors may or may not really be that important. If you're selling something like a bike safety vest and it comes in neon colors so that you're easily visible by cars, so you're safe, that's going to be a lot more important than the colors on a baby cabinet lock. So it's not to say that colors aren't an important feature to include. It totally depends on your product. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. Well, if you have
Pretty
like
clearly.
really wealthy people having like $100,000 kitchens, that might be something that appeals to them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about knowing your market and what is important to them, right? So I don't want you to think that I'm sitting here shutting down colors as an important feature. I'm not, because it totally depends on your product and what your market is. So cool. So now we get to dive into the fun stuff. So we got all that stuff. This is the work. This is the grunt work. So which can be kind of fun, actually. I do enjoy this part of writing sales copy as well. So
Of course you do.
of course. So I'm a nerd. I'll admit it. I'll own it. Cool. So now we're going to jump into the secret behind emotional selling. So this is basically the emotional part of your selling process is picking through those advantages, and I really want you guys to see that connection between the two. So I'm going to give you guys a 4-step checklist to ensure that you're appealing to people's emotions properly. And this is going to help spark some inspiration, because I know that when I got this checklist for myself and I laid it out, this was a really good way to spark ideas for writing copy and sparking ideas for how to appeal to the person's emotions based on the product that I was trying to write copy for. So I hope you guys find this very useful. So with this, so basically with the 3-step formula that I just showed you guys, it's designed to help move your thought process to an emotional area. And I'm talking about you right now. I want you guys, when you're writing your copy, I want to move your thoughts into the emotional area and how your customer is feeling. Generally, people as a whole, we'd like to think we're pretty logical creatures. We're not. We make a lot of decisions based on unconscious emotional decisions. Sorry guys, I'm going like major psychology nerd on you guys. I got a psychology degree, so I love diving into stuff like this. So I apologize in advance that I'm going nerdy on you here, but a lot of our decisions are made in our unconscious emotional place of our brains, right? And that's, as marketers, that's what we're trying to appeal to. So going back to the baby example really quickly, those covered locks are a huge pain, but the inconvenience of that is clouded by our need to protect our baby. So the idea of our child becoming injured or worse is really upsetting to us, and we want to avoid those feelings. And so that's part of the reason that's going to push us to make those decisions, right? And for those of you who are parents, understand that, right? Like the worst thing in the world is the thought of your child becoming sick or injured. I'm not a parent myself, but I do remember being a kid, and I broke my arm on my bike, pretty typical. And I came home that night, and I remember laying in my bed, and I had my huge arm cast on, and my mom went into the washroom, and I just heard a thump. And I went in, and she had actually fainted, and she always talks about that. And it was the stress of knowing that her kid, me, had gone through that kind of trauma, right? So that's what I'm talking about, is people, like, they want to avoid awful emotions like that. So that's where we make a lot of our decisions, is my point to that big story. So emotions guide us to make buying decisions we're not aware of. So consider when you're at the grocery store, for example, and you reach for a specific brand of peanut butter. Why do we do that? Why do you go and you buy, I know I always buy Kraft. Is that a thing? Do you guys have Kraft peanut butter in the States? I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or not, but...
We have Kraft cheese, but I don't know about peanut butter.
Oh, I know. Sometimes I throw like weird Canadian things in there, and I don't know if I'm just talking crazy or not.
I don't know, I'm not the biggest peanut butter person, but yeah, it definitely sounds like a cheese brand.
Oh, goodness. Okay, well, I go for Kraft peanut butter at home. But why do I choose that? Why do I choose that over Jif or whatever peanut butter? I grew up on Kraft. I remember it being in this shelf as a kid, and that was my after-school snack. So little things like that, I don't always necessarily think about it. I just grab it because that's what I know, right? So, and this is what I'm trying to portray to you guys, is there's a lot of like emotional stuff going on in our brains that's making these decisions. So that's why we want to make sure that we're focusing on that so heavily when we're trying to sell. And that's why it's so important to consider the advantages of every feature that we have in our product and take it to the next level. That's how you're going to convince your buyer that you know the problem better than they do. And when you can convince your buyer that you know the problem better than they do, that very conveniently sets you up as an authority in their mind. Because if you know the problem really well, there's a good chance you also know the solution, right? And you guys, do you see how that connects with each other? Sorry, I'm going on a thing here, tangent. I'm getting excited.
No, you're good. No, that's
cool.
Yeah, you're on point.
Cool. All right. I told you guys, I get all excited about this nerdy psychology stuff, and I just like go off the handle. So how do we dig into these emotions? What things do we want to consider? So the first thing that your customer needs to believe in order to take action is that the problem is severe. So they need to feel like this problem is worth solving. If they don't feel like the problem's worth solving, they're not going to take action. You know what I mean? So that's the very first thing that you want to make sure that you've portrayed when you're selling to your customers.
Yeah, I think that also goes into selling the right product too. Like it even like backtracks all the way to the start of what you're selling, because the easiest things to sell are things that you don't have to convince people that they have a problem. They already have the problem, right? So
right.
It goes a little bit further than just starting at your copy, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So with number 2, so the second thing on your checklist that you want to make sure that you've portrayed in your sales copy is the belief that they're susceptible to the problem. So you want them to believe that this will happen to them. And this one's really tricky because humans generally just go about their day like nothing bad's going to happen to us. Like I know the biggest thing right now is texting and driving. There's a whole lot of campaigns against it and why it's bad and stuff, but I'm sure, and you guys don't have to admit to it, but I'm sure there's a lot of us that are guilty of doing it still, right? And even though we've seen the disastrous results that it can have and how fatal it can be, we still do it because most people go about their day like this isn't going to happen to me. So, and that's obviously a much more exaggerated example than what we're talking about in marketing and whatnot. But you want people to believe that they're susceptible to the problem, because if they don't think it's going to happen to them, there's a really good chance they're not going to take action and take advantage of what you're trying to sell them. So that's the next thing that you want to make sure that you've portrayed. And number 3, and sorry, the way to, sorry, I should have mentioned this before I slipped slides here. I'm getting all excited again. It's really important to basically, really good way to do this is basically to write out all the justifications that they might have for their behavior. So the baby lock's kind of a bad one because I can't really think off the top of my head of a justification why they might have it. But going back to the car starter thing, someone might be able to be like, well, I'm not, like, to throw on a toque and mittens to run out to my car, you know, like, that's not really a big deal instead of paying, like, however many, I don't even know how much those things are, to be honest, but you know what I mean? Like, they might be able to justify that it's not really that big of a deal in their mind. So you want to basically go through any justifications for the behavior that they may have, and then that's a really good way to kind of spark your how do you counteract those justifications.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could use that justification too with the texting and driving. Meanwhile, don't get me started on that topic because I'm so against texting and driving. Like, I'm not even going to get into it. But, you know, people say, like, especially the younger generation, they're like, oh, I could do 2 things at once, you know. But, you know, it's true, though. People, you know, justify themselves all the time. And yeah, so you can use that example as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Belief number 3, this one's obviously really important. So they need to believe that the recommended solution is effective. If they don't believe that what you're selling them is going to work, they're probably not going to buy it. So a really good way to kind of counteract this belief is how you build up the trust that they have in you, and also how you establish your credibility as an authority in this situation. You can do that by talking about your experience with the problem. Obviously, this depends on the product or service that you might be selling, but you can talk about your experience, any education you may have. A really good way to build credit and trust is obviously testimonials or screenshots of results. Again, this all depends on the product that you're selling, but like I said, a really good way to make sure they believe that the solution is effective is just building authority, building credibility, and that's going to help them, you know, move them along past this hesitation that they might have.
Yeah, and you know, it's a good thing that you brought up testimonials too, because and somebody else did earlier as well. And testimonials is a great place to do research for your features, benefits, and advantages, because your customers are ultimately going to be the ones, and it doesn't even have to be your customers, it could be other people's customers and other people's testimonials. They're ultimately going to be the ones that tell you, oh my God, I love this because, you know, and it might have not even been something that you initially thought of in the list when you were describing your benefits. That's the beauty of reading testimonials and reviews. I know that, you know, when you talk about, I'm in the Amazon world of book creation and everything like that. When you're coming up with a topic, you know, look at what reviewers are saying. what are they saying that they're lacking or they still have issues with. That's a great way to come up with the benefits and advantage features, benefits, and advantages.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
hearing it from the horse's mouth, pretty much, which
Yeah.
is your.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely, when I take on projects and stuff as a copywriter, I used to like pummel my clients for testimonials and stuff because that was a really good way for me as a freelance when I was doing freelance writing. It was a really good way for me to familiarize myself with the market and what kind of things that the market valued and
Mm-hmm.
find inspiration from there. So
Absolutely.
cool. All right, so then we get on to belief number 4, which is the final thing in your checklist, and this one's really important and not something that people, always think about. So the final thing that you want people to believe is if they're personally capable of performing the solution. So you want them to know that they have the ability or resources to carry out the solution. So one of the big things, the best example I can think of, especially in the IM world, is when you're doing any kind of training course on this is how you make money doing this, right? Um, the one thing you want to consider with your target market is you want to make sure that they have the time, right? Time is a huge thing. Do they have the time to show up to your training sessions? You know what I mean? Are these people that work 9 to 5 during the day? So can they attend a 2 p.m. Eastern time webinar? You know what I mean? Like those are the things you want to think about. So do they have the time? Do they have the financial resources? Are you appealing to maybe a lower income crowd that might not have, a spare $100 to put towards a training course? Do they have kids that eat up their time? All those things, like those are all things that you want to consider, and make sure that you're appealing to the customer because if they don't think it may be, they may feel the problem needs to be fixed. They may feel that they're susceptible to the problem, and they may feel that you've got a great solution, but they may not be able to take advantage of it because of some other reason. So my point is consider all the reasons that your customer might not be able to do it, and that's something that you want to spell out for them in your sales copy. And that might be something. This is also a really good way, depending on what your product is, to adapt certain things to make sure that it is achievable for your target market. So, do we have any questions on that? I think that kind of ties up that section of that. So, or Debbie, do you have anything to throw in there? Oops, going ahead of myself.
No, I don't see. All right, we're getting some good feedback. I'm just kind of looking at the questions, and people are digging the stuff. You guys digging everything that we're doing today? Just give us some feedback, and also we're nearing towards the end of the content, so make sure you get in any questions that you have while we're here live and with you guys. It's a great take advantage of
Cool.
Kayla's expertise.
I'm glad you guys are. I'm really glad you guys are liking this. This is so it's such a basic concept. Like when you first learn about writing sales copy, you learn about features and benefits and advantages, and you learn that. But it's such a big piece, and there's so many things to kind of wrap your head around. So I mean, our goal of this call is basically to give you guys all that, but try to give it to you in a way that's really simple, because I know that when I first started learning, it felt like I got hit by a bus with information, and trying to navigate my way through this information. So really want it to be seamless for you guys in the way that you digest it. So.
What's really cool about this stuff too? Like, if you get everything else in your copy wrong somehow, and you get your features, benefits, and your advantages right, like that could just be the thing that makes your copy convert. That's how
Definitely.
critical this part is, and you just gotta keep doing it and keep practicing it, on pretty much, just practice it on random products too. That's how you're gonna get good at this. Just ingrain it in your head, because it's easy. It's also easy to forget. I know I have to keep sometimes relearning this too, because it's just hard, because you're the one that's writing it, you're the one that's in it, and you want to, push those feelings and make, you know, I was saying to Kayla the other day, like sometimes when I read copy and the copy is just speaking directly to my needs and making promises that will solve my problems, it's almost like, and please type in if you agree with this or you've had this emotion before. It's like you almost feel like a sigh of relief that you're gonna get a solution to your problem. It's almost like this physical thing comes over, like overcomes you, and you're like, oh. And it's like that's when you know you have somebody on the hook and they're gonna buy. I know, because I mean, it's easy for me to say that because I'm in the market that I sell to, so it's like I read copy with like a fine tooth comb, and I'm like, wow, that really was a great statement, or that really spoke to me. And that's what you kind of want to do to people who are reading your copy, is like get that physical kind of emotion and have them express that, and that's kind of like what's going to relate to them, and that's what's going to make people buy.
Yeah.
When you really, really hone in on what they need as a solution to their problem.
Mm-hmm. Just because you guys kind of asking for some more examples, and like Debbie said, like when you kind of pick up her copy a little bit differently when you're looking at it from this kind of angle. But have you guys? I cannot remember the name of the car dealership that does it, but there's a car commercial that's running right now, and throughout the commercial they show this car that has been in this awful wreck, and they show the car like at the accident and then going to the wrecking yard, and all these people keep looking at the car and they say they lived. They lived. They lived. And you're looking at this awful wreck and you're watching these people. And then I think at the commercial something like they show the family that was in the car that walked away from it basically. And I watched that commercial and I was like, that is so good. You know what I mean? The way that makes you feel, because it's just emotional selling at its best. You know what I mean? Because car accidents are something that I'm sure have affected a lot of people in maybe different ways. They happen a lot. And so when you see something like that so just plays on your emotions so well, like it's so well done. I don't know if you guys have seen that commercial or if I'm just talking crazy, but that's a really good example of emotional selling. And they really took into consideration, because you see commercials for cars all the time that advertise all the safety features that, to be honest, mean pretty much nothing to us most of the time. We just want our cars to function, and we just want, if we do end up in a car accident, we just want to know that we're going to be safe, right? That's really all we care about. I don't care how many airbags are in it. I don't care about, the type of brakes. I just want to know that they're going to function when I need them to function. So when you put a commercial like that just appeals to the emotions of your customers without giving them a bunch of, what's the word I'm looking for? When you use kind of technical terms. Anyways, you guys see what I'm saying. And, it's just, I don't want to waste time trying to figure it out.
Without scaring the life out of them.
Right. Subaru. Thank you, Philip. Subaru commercial. Yeah, so anyways, that's if you guys haven't caught the commercial or whatever, just pay attention to it and pay attention to the emotions that you feel when you're watching that commercial, because it's very, very well done. So cool. So before we jump into our question period, I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit. So for those of you that are Scriptall users, you've probably seen this page, and this is where you're going to kind of, so that table that I'm going to start hounding you guys to start doing first, this is where you're going to put that information in. So when you get to number 5, when you're creating your profiles, the first section, so it says the product will help you achieve your goal because it has, and then there's a blank space. That's where you're going to put in your feature. The next line says, which is good for you because, that's where you put in the benefit and advantage. And you can do that in about 2 sentences. So just a really simple formula for you guys that I use when I'm filling this out is, because I love using this because it saves me a whole lot of time. So when you're filling out the because it has, fill out a sentence that quickly describes the feature, which is good for you because the first sentence of that should be the benefit. The second sentence should describe the advantage. Just keep it concise, keep it clean, and that's a really really good way just to get all that information into your copy in a really concise way. So yeah.
I have a question. I know that, we do things very methodically and for a purpose with ScriptDoll. Is there, just in general, like, or is there like a rule of thumb where, like, where your features and benefits should go in your copy?
It's, I don't like to make dead fast rules with copy, just because, I mean, it's still an art, right? So you want to be able to play with it a little bit. And it also depends on what type of copy you're writing. It totally depends on whether it's an email. It depends on whether it's an upsell or just a long-form sales letter. It depends on whether you are sending cold traffic or warm traffic. There's so many different areas. There's so many different aspects that can change where you're going to put your features and benefits list. So I really don't want to, tell you guys a rule that has so many different gray areas and exceptions to it. Generally, I will say about a long-form sales letter, generally, because that's kind of the meat of what we've been talking about today, generally the features and benefits list will go after you've introduced the product. So I always start my copy with what I call, there's the headline portion, and then next is the story portion where you tell a little bit about your story and the product and all that kind of stuff. And then you introduce the product. You give a quick explanation of what it is in about, I don't know, a 3-sentence paragraph, and then you throw your features and benefits in. So does that kind of, sorry, I know that I kind of gave a
No, I love that answer because it's like, I mean, there is really no answer, but there is when it comes to each individualized copy that you're writing.
Right.
So yeah, that's great, definitely.
Yeah, and that's something that we take, into consideration too. And Debbie, when we're writing these templates, like that's always something that we consider, right? Is how's the user going to be using this template? And that's kind of, so when we're creating these things, that's the kind of stuff that we take into consideration when we're creating them. So cool. All right. So that sums up the content portion. So I'm excited to hear questions.
Awesome. That was fun. That was great. A big question is, will there be a replay? Yes, there will be a replay, and we're posting the replays on the blog. So I'm sure you'll see that on Facebook as well when our replay is up and running.
Sorry, I don't want to completely butcher your name with the pronunciation. Sanjay?
Sanjay.
But Sanjay, okay. Sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciations, and I always feel like a horrible person when I mess it up. But in ScriptDoll, it asks, this is a really good question. In ScriptDoll, it asks you to enter a dollar value to the features and benefits. How would you enter a dollar value for this product as an example? Just one of the biggest mistakes you can make is completely overvaluing your product. You just throw in big numbers there, because the idea with throwing in valuations is you want to give your product a great valuation so that when you actually give them the price, there's that whole, oh, I'm getting a great deal. You know what I mean? So it's the same concept as when you go into a store. Let's say, I actually saw a really good meme that I wish, it was actually in the Cult of Copy, Colin Terrio's group. I can't remember who shared it, but it was a picture of shoes, and on one half of the picture, it had the picture of shoes and it had a $100 price tag on it. And then beside it, it had those same shoes with the $100 price tag, but above it, they had $200 crossed out to show that they were on sale. That's kind of the idea with valuations and why they're important, right? And everyone kind of goes crazy when they think they're getting a deal, even though it might be just that price. So that's the importance of valuations. How to figure out your valuation, it totally obviously depends on your product, but make sure you can back that up. You know what I mean? So, for example, like when we're doing a product with Ben, or we're going to promote one of our training courses, one of Ben's training courses, like when I come up with those valuations and Ben and I are brainstorming these things, we'll go, okay, so this is what you charge for a one-to-one coaching call. Okay, so if you were to spend this amount of time on this, then we do the math, and you know what I mean? Like they're all very calculated, because when we sell a product, I don't, like, first of all, like, you always just have to defend what you're selling, right? You always have to defend those valuations, because if you just put some bloated valuation, people are going to call you out on your BS. And yeah, so calculate it. So a good example as well. Let's say you're teaching, you're doing online yoga videos, a series of online yoga videos, and you are an in-class instructor. So you charge $70. That would be a really expensive class, but anyways, let's say you spend $70 for 1 hour, a 1 hour class, and then you're selling like 5 hours of videos, right? So you would begin your valuation based on how much you charge in real life, because that's how you're going to be able to back up what the valuations are you're putting on your sales page. So I hope that answers that question pretty clearly. What else do we got? What questions do we have?
Does Scriptall, Scott asked, does Scriptall offer templates for service businesses? For example, he owns an entertainment business and needs potential clients. That would be the offline template, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean, the thing with the templates is that we've designed them so that it's based on your profile, like what you put in your profile, and then the template will adapt to the market that you're selling. So, kind of depending on what you're using, you could use our Web 3.0 template, or you could specifically, yeah, if you're selling to offline clients, we have an offline sales letter template as well that would work for that.
Yeah, and you know, just kind of to let you all know is that we are, and if you've been paying attention, we put out a new template every single week. So we are, you know, the templates in there are building up, and we're building upon the existing templates that are in there, which really makes this exciting because every week we're adding new stuff in there, kind of targeting different areas of marketing, like last week we did offline. Next week we're doing some JV stuff, which we've had a lot of requests there too. We're doing retargeting things, like we're touching a lot of areas where people, you know, obviously need content, and we have several templates in the works for different things like Facebook ads, and I know we're going to be probably doing some author stuff. So we are definitely adding some variety, and what's really exciting too, I think, especially when, you know, the more templates that we add, the more you can kind of take a look and kind of mix and match, you know, just different statements, different you know, ways of saying kind of the same thing, so that, you know, you can add more to your repertoire of copy that you write. So that's really, really
That's like a $10
that
word,
excites
Debbie.
me. Yeah, I know, right? I should like win a prize or something.
Right.
But you know, that's exciting. You know, I mean, so you guys that are in Scriptall, you have a lot of good stuff that's already in there, obviously, but a lot of good stuff that's coming as well.
Cool. We had a question. Can you, Bill asked if there's a time when you can have too much content or too many features benefits. We already kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to reiterate, don't want to put any hard rules on this, because I mean, it totally, you got to shake it up depending on your product, but generally, as a general rule, and take this for what it is, try to have a minimum of 5 features. Try not to do more than 8 to 10. The thing you want to consider too is every feature you include in your copy, ask yourself, is it important? Is this something that is going to make the customer buy, or is this just a fluff feature? Is this something that I'm just kind of just trying to pump value into? You know what I mean? Because what can happen is if you put those fluff features in, it'll completely saturate your list overall, and it will take away your customers' ability to kind of pick out what's important. You know what I mean? We want to make sure we're giving them everything very directly, to make sure that they really truly understand why this product is important. So you don't want to overload it with a bunch of features that may not actually have any bearing on their decision to buy. So
And
You
also,
will.
the more you get better at this, the more you're gonna start like being obsessed like me. Like I study other people's copywriting and their letters like all the time. And sometimes it's like, okay, if you see a sales letter with like 20 bullet points, like it's a little bit overwhelming too. It might be too much, and you don't always need that much to sell your product. But it really depends. Like it's very situational because if you really have 20 awesome features and benefits, then go for it, name them. But if you're just like Kayla said, if you're just like adding fluff, then that's I think that's going to hurt you rather than help you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. One thing too, sorry, I wanted to touch on this earlier, but another thing that I've seen when I've reviewed copy for clients, one of the mistakes that people make, not just forgetting to talk about the advantages, I know that that's something we focused on um, in this call today, but one of the other mistakes I've seen done too is people will just simply list out their features and expect that they speak for themselves. I'm not
Mm.
trying to downplay and say your product is not super awesome, but there's, you know what I mean? I hope that you guys, after kind of going through this today, you can see why that's not something that you want to do. So always make sure that you're giving that a little kind of blurb on your features and benefits list about the benefits and advantages. Don't just simply, fool yourself into thinking that the feature alone will sell the product, right? You gotta give a little more on a silver platter to your customers and wine and dine them a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well.
And thank you, Kevin. Thanks for the shout out. He said that
Yeah.
we rock. So I know that a lot of you here are ScriptDoll members, but for the people who aren't ScriptDoll members, just like a really quick overview of this awesome product that just keeps getting awesomer by the day, really, because we're just like constantly brainstorming about how we can add to this, and that's where the power is. Like I just said, like the additional things that we're adding to um, what it was, gosh, like 3 months ago. It's turning into something really amazing and really helping people out. But basically, Scriptall just takes the guesswork out of copywriting, and it literally puts, proven to work templates at your fingertips. Kayla has been working with Dr. Ben longer than I have, and they're just like masterminds at copy, and the proof is in the pudding. Their stuff sells, and basically it's like literally templates that Ben and Kayla have been using for years, and now me, woohoo, have been using for years, and trying to help other people, empower other people who, like, literally, instead of staring at a blank screen, trying to figure out what to write, it just accelerates the whole writing process, and it literally does, I would say, like Kayla, like about like 70 to 75% of your copywriting for you, and then you
Yeah.
just need to kind of customize it and tweak it to cater to, whatever it is that you're doing, and that's done with like the profiles that we give you to basically questions that we give you to fill out about your product and your service that you're offering, and then so Scriptall kind of spits out this template, and then you're just like tweaking it as opposed to just starting from scratch and staring at a blank screen, which literally stops people in their tracks from making money and selling things online. That's like almost the number one thing. Or people they try to come up with their best form of copywriting, but they're missing components. They're missing important things that you need in your copy to be able to sell a product, you know? And that's kind of like the overview of what Scriptall does for people. It really empowers people and takes that fear away from thinking that they can't sell anything because they don't know how to write copy. So it's really exciting what we're building, and I know that you guys are excited too. So
Cool. Another question from Bill. He asked if there's an order priority for presenting features and benefits. Again, it's hard for me to say that without actually knowing what your product is. So that's something that, again, it comes from knowing your market and knowing what's important to them. I'm sorry to kind of give you a great answer, but that's kind of what I can tell you without actually knowing what the product is and what the features are that you're talking about. So, you know, like I said, it comes from knowing your market and knowing what's going to resonate the best with them. And a good way, actually, sorry, like I guess a better way I can answer that too is when you create a product or you run a service, there's a reason why you did it. You know what I mean? We don't create products and we don't create services and run them for no reason. You know what I mean? So what to you was the number one reason you created that product or service? And go from there. You know what I mean? That might be a really good way that will help you in understanding how to order them. So I hope that answers that question fairly clearly for you. I hate giving great answers. It's so hard. Sometimes, I mean, that's the thing with sales copy is it's an art and it's very creative and there's so many gray areas, and that is one of the reasons why it can be so intimidating for people who don't necessarily understand copywriting, is because there's so many gray areas. And that's one of the things that I know a lot of people have really enjoyed about Scriptdoll is that it takes that away. Like Debbie said, it takes out a lot of the guesswork and knowing where to put things and where you put your features and benefits and how you do this and how you do that. It can be really intimidating. It's a lot, and it's such an important part of marketing. You know, putting like words to sell your product. If you don't have great words and great persuasive copy there, it can ruin a great product or service. So yeah, that's super intimidating, and it makes it even worse when you have all these gray areas. So you know, not to kind of pump our chest, but to be completely honest, that's one of the great things about Scriptdoll is it does take that away. So
absolutely. One more thing, some people were asking. I believe right now there is you can either choose to pay for Scriptdoll on a yearly basis or a monthly basis. So there's two payment options for Scriptdoll. If you visit scriptdoll.net, you'll be able to find the answers to your payment questions. Sweet.
Cool. Do we have any other questions before we jump off? I think we're kind of coming up to, we're a little past our hour. Sorry, guys. You guys have great questions, so I feel bad. I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So I guess we'll tie this up for today. Just so you guys know, with the office hours, this is something that we're trying to do pretty much every week. There might be some weeks where we just can't for whatever reason, but generally we're going to try to do this week to week and cover different topics that are really going to help you guys with your sales copy and marketing. And you know, we're going to try to come to you guys with the topics that, you know, we feel is really important, and don't be afraid to hit up our help desk and let them know if there's kind of things you guys are wondering too, because we're here for you. That's the goal of this call. So, and always check your email too. Like, we'll always remind you guys when we have a call coming up. So, yeah, so I think that's about it. And if you guys have any additional questions that you don't feel got answered or anything, feel free to hit up our help desk. We're definitely more than happy, and we're here to help you guys out. So.
Absolutely. Awesome. Great session. This was fun. This was really fun. And thank you guys for hanging out with us for an hour. It was really cool.
I think your mic might be fighting you there a little bit, Debbie. Someone put it's going a little bit haywire on you. You sound like you're from like space or something. All good. All right. Well, we'll close this up. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope this was really helpful for you guys, and can't wait to jump on with you guys again soon and do some more office hours calls. So we will talk to you guys later.